webinar talk show. I'm Liz Green.
And I am Tom Singer. And Eliz and I, long time ago, decided that webinars should be more than talking heads over PowerPoint. And so we came up with this idea of interviewing really smart people so that we could find out their brilliance and share it with you.
And speaking of finding brilliance, we have an amazing guest for you today. And that's what he does. He helps people understand where their brilliance lies using something from the CoreClarity model. And he's going to tell us all about that. But the idea is if you know where your brilliance is, he can help you leverage those gifts and talents. It is so interesting. I know it's going to be useful. Welcome to the Webinar Talk Show, Gary Rifkin.
Hey, Gary Rifkin in the house. Yes.
I love hanging out with Liz and Tom. This is great.
Good to see you, Gary.
You too.
So you haven't had a haircut since this whole COVID thing started, have you?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. I'm a buzz cut guy, and this is not a buzz cut.
Yeah. I have started cutting my husband's hair. I have nice little clippers and off we go.
Yeah.
Well, as I told you, I made a proclamation in March that I wasn't getting a haircut until I was back on a live stage. So I'm still dealing with like 4 months of hair.
Yep. Yep. Good.
So Gary, let's dive into this.
Yeah.
A lot of us know about the strengths model.
Right.
You at CoreClarity have really an interesting way of understanding that, because I can get a report that tells me here are my strengths, and I honestly don't know what to do with that. And I think as we're negotiating this new environment of work, that we're working virtually, we're going to start going back in person, all of those new things. What does understanding what those strengths really are mean for managing a team and being on a team?
Yeah. So, and I'll give you a little bit of backstory in just a moment. But before I do, the key in my book is I already know kind of what I'm good at, but I don't know that I can articulate it. But if I really know what I'm good at, if I can take an assessment that says, hey, out of a field of 34 different potential talent themes, these are your top 5. And oh, by the way, if you were to lean into those top 5, not only will you be more effective, but you'll have better energy. You'll actually enjoy what you're doing. To me, that was just a huge, almost a brain burst. Like, this is awesome. And so the assessment that you and I are both referring to is called the Clifton Strengths Assessment.
Right.
It's from Gallup actually created the assessment. Actually, the assessment was created by Don Clifton and Marcus Buckingham. And Gallup owns that assessment and they administer it. And as you said, what they present to you when you take the assessment is great. But a lot of people don't know what to do with it. And so just over 15 years ago, Candace Fitzpatrick, who is the founder of CoreClarity, came upon it as most people did, fell in love with it, and then decided to start to put it into a framework that actually helped her understand it better. And she called the framework and the company CoreClarity. And so what she did is took those 34 talents, put them into what we call 4 quadrants that represent how the talents show up, whether they show up around connecting us with other people over time, whether they show up in the way that we reflect on the information we're gathering and making decisions around, whether they show up around how we energize ourselves toward action, or whether they show up around how we mobilize other people to action. And when you put it all together into the framework, it's fascinating. But what's so cool is not only do I know what my gifts are, but I know what your gifts are. And when we're working on a team, I know that, on my team, I need Becca because she's got this gift of achiever and this gift of discipline where she can get a lot done and she's got a process for doing it. Those are things I'm not good at, but she's great at it. So there's an old saying that Peter Drucker is quoted by saying, do what you do best and outsource the rest. Well, if I'm working on a team with one other person or a number of other people, and I can lean into another person's gifts and talents, and they can lean into mine, not only are we more effective together, but I'm enjoying what I'm doing more. And that, I'm sure, is a lot of why you two are so successful, because you have some talents in common and you have some talents that are different that allow for the balance and for the uptake of different ideas and activities.
Well, feel free to use us examples to demonstrate this because
I promise that I will. Because
I,
well, it's interesting, Elis, because so there are 34 different talent themes, but all three of us have one in common, which is called woo, which stands for winning others over. And people with woo, woo, right. Well, people with woo are naturally charming. These are the people who, comfortably work a room. Well, hello, that's what Tom teaches people to do. Tom actually goes into spaces and helps people to connect with each other. That's how that woo, he's mobilizing other people to action by connecting with other people. That's what you all are doing with your interviews, is you are charming your audience to learn about another individual, and you do it so effectively. So each of us knowing what our gifts are, we also, it's rare that all three of us also have the gift of communication, which means that we have an ability to put our words into a way that help people understand them. And that's not something, and a lot of people think, well, can't everyone do that? No. I don't know, I think about 15% of the population has communication in their top 5.
Wow, it's that low.
Oh yeah.
So I know I have mine in front of me. I have a little card that you guys gave me when I took this test from you in the past. And the first one for me is winning others over, right? The woo is really high on mine. And the second one is communication. And I just sort of assumed like everyone who does sort of what we do would have communication. I mean, that's sort of a given.
I just checked my numbers, and it's actually 12% of the population have communication. And that's a population that, at least in our database of almost 80,000 people, includes a lot of people in the National Speakers Association, many of whom do not have the communication talent, which means they have to work a little bit harder to make the message work.
Okay.
For us, it comes easily.
So it doesn't mean you can't be a good communicator.
No,
it just means it's not part of your natural makeup.
It means it might take a little more effort. What I also love about this is that one of our core concepts is that we have a belief system that we grow up with that's a real faulty way of thinking, that we think everyone thinks the same way we do. And I mean, you think about everything that's going on in our world right now, and it is a huge problem for us that we just assume everyone sees the world the way we do. Well, take this to the next point. I am the kind of person who, if I'm not super aware of that, I'm going to say to somebody, just use your words, say what you mean. And I finally had my colleague, Candace, who is brilliant around this, say to me, Gary, not all of us have the words. You have the words. So when you say use your words, you don't mean it, but you're being disrespectful. So instead, I have to figure out how can I help you with creating the right words so that you can get your message heard effectively.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, it's just really cool stuff. And on Teams, it's super cool because now instead of everybody having to like create the big part of the report, everybody can submit their content. And then the person with that communication talent can weave it into the story that goes to the board of directors that talks about what we wanted everybody to understand.
So that's the key, right? Is understanding where people's talents on your team really lie.
That's right.
What do you see team leaders doing wrong when it comes to this?
Yeah, so I think the biggest mistake team leaders make before they've ever seen this, but even after they've seen it, is assuming everyone must be treated exactly the same. Well, if I treat everyone exactly the same, I'm going to treat you the way I would want to be treated if I were in your shoes. But I'm not you, and you're not me.
Right.
For years, I was raised with the value set, as many of us were, that we should do unto others as you would have them do unto you, or treat people the way you want to be treated. And then I came across a book by Dr. Tony Alessandra that talks about not the golden rule, but the platinum rule, where he said, treat people the way they want to be treated, because the way you want to be treated may not be the way I want to be treated. All of a sudden, because I have a framework, I can at least begin to treat you the way you want to be treated and not the way I would want to be treated. And it makes a huge difference for a manager, because now that manager can look at their team chart, and Tom just had his badge up. When a manager has a whole set of badges for their whole chart, for their whole team, and they can see everybody's talents across the scope, they go, oh, so this person has this talent called restorative. Restoratives love to fix things. if we have this really difficult problem going on and we kind of have a little bit of a solution, but we're losing energy around it, let's pull our restorative in to help us work on the problem, because they're energized by the breakdown. They're energized by trying to fix what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
When I
So,
know that as a manager, I know how I can best deploy my resources, my people, in a way that's most effective.
so Gary, something came to mind as you were telling that story, and that is early in my career, when I was in my mid-20s,
Yeah.
I worked for a computer training company. If you go back to the 90s, we didn't all know how to use Word and Excel. These boxes were appearing on our desks.
Yes.
And I worked for a company that their job was to go into corporations and law firms and other things and teach people how to turn on the computer, how a word processor and a spreadsheet worked.
Yep.
And I was in sales. My job was to sell people who were installing computers for the first time with this training that they needed to go with it. And I wanted to get certified as a trainer. Now, I wasn't super techie, but I knew how to use Word and Excel. I wanted to do the basic training so that I could sell it. And then I could go back sometimes on the weekends, because it was our trainers didn't like to work on Saturday, and I could do the law firm training. And my boss wouldn't let me do it. He's like, "You're in sales, you just sell." But when I look at my little card,
Yep.
communications is my second key. If he had been a really good boss, and I hope he's not watching this,
Hey, I hope he is.
he
Yeah.
should have realized that if communication was one of my strengths, I should be selling and training. Is that correct?
Right.
Yes, and you also have a talent called strategic, which you're a big picture thinker. You start with the end in mind and figure out how to get there. People with strategic and communication have an ability to put the story out there in a way that other people can really grasp. And that's what you were wanting to do. And so you might be fine in sales. You're number one woo. You're going to charm people. You're going to pull them in really comfortably. But there's going to be a time where you're going to want to help people to grow. And you can do that with your strategic and your communication talents together. And so, yeah, if he could realize that by not letting you do that, he was actually pulling some of your own energy away because you were wanting to lean into it and he wasn't giving you that opportunity. I have a philosophy that there are some people that have to be really good at content to deliver that content. I also believe that there are some of us, especially those of us with communication and woo, and you also have positivity, so that kind of naturally uplifting. You give us something to learn. If we're then going to have to teach it, we can learn it, because the goal is to help somebody else to be able to do it. And I don't think that I understood that when I was younger, but as I grew older, as I started in my career, I discovered that I could teach almost anything fairly effectively because it was about what was going to be the outcome for my audience. There's a lot of people that can't do that. And now I understand that they can't do what I can do and I can't do what they can do.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And I think I've seen it in my career and in people that I've worked with, that leaders often think that they need to demonstrate how they want the team to work, and they'll go and like, here's the framework we're going to need, and here's how we're going to measure success, and these sort of things. What would be your advice in terms of measuring the effectiveness of the team based on these concepts? Because it might look different to what people are using now.
Yeah, so I think the key is to find out whether people feel like they're walking out of the office every day feeling like they had value in some way, that they contributed in some way. And so one of the things that we do in our team dynamics workshop with intact teams is we help them begin to realize, we need Tom's positivity in this space because, hey, we're kind of struggling. Let's pull him in. What we also understand is that there are times when a manager, when a leader doesn't assign something to somebody else because they're thinking, oh gosh, that's a drab job. I don't want to make somebody else do that. The number of times where early on in my career within CoreClarity, I remember telling Becca, I was going to have you work on this, but it's just all these details and I didn't really want to make you do that. And her response was, make me do that. I love the details.
Right.
And that was a huge aha, that the best way for me to role model as a manager is to find out what she most enjoys doing and let her do that. Mandy on our staff, her brilliance is that she understands people so well that when we need somebody to have one-on-one coaching, I send them to Mandy because she has this wonderful patience and she has a talent called empathy. And people with empathy are just naturally intuitive and they read where somebody else is coming from and they kind of connect with them on a really heart-to-heart level. Mandy's great at that. I'm not nearly as good at that as she is. So the one-on-one, she's great. The one-on-many, that's me. My woo is just on fire, as both of you know. The one-on-many is fun for a woo. For somebody with empathy, the one-on-one is a lot more exciting. So for the manager to understand that is really key.
That reminds me, I was on school board several years ago and we were interviewing a new principal or interviewing for the new principal. And one of the candidates, the one that we ultimately hired, said, you know, when people walk out of the school at the end of the day, I want the kids to walk out just exhausted because they have learned so much. And I want the staff to walk out energized. And I'm like, that's a really good goal. That's understanding that if you create the culture where the people can really use all of their talents and feel good about it, yeah, they're going to walk out. They may be tired, but they're still like, yeah, that was a good day.
Yeah. So my challenge to that statement would be, I want the students to be physically exhausted, but emotionally exhilarated. So when we've done this work with teachers, one of the things we try to help them see is that the way some students learn is different than the way other students learn. So I had a teacher that was really into class participation, I loved the year. But I had people in my class who did not love the year because they were more internal learners. They learned better from, give us an assignment, let's go work on it. I'm the guy, give me an assignment, let me talk it out with somebody. In fact, tell me that my assignment is to learn it and then go teach it to the class. I'm all over it. So for teachers to understand that students get energized differently in the way that they learn, that's big. And when this has been done with schools, the teachers get really energized because they understand their teaching style and then they understand how they can modify that for each of their students.
So Gary, let's wrap this up by getting real practical. So we can use my profile. I have it in front of me. You have it in front of you.
I have your entire what we call CoreClarity pyramid right here.
Nice. So if somebody was to be, let's say, starting a new job.
Yeah.
If somebody was going into a new company and they were taking on a business development sales job, let's say maybe like an executive search.
Yep.
There may be a reason I'm saying that. I'm actually joining an executive search firm as a director and doing business development.
I love it.
If you were to look at my profile, what would be the things that I and my boss should do to make sure that I excel?
So when I look at your profile, and what you might do is you have your badge handy. You might put that up to the camera so that folks can see the talents that I think you can probably see them. But so we've already talked about the woo and the communication. So you need to be in a space where you can be meeting new people, which is why in that kind of an industry, woos are great because woos want to be around new people all the time. The communication, we want to put you into a role where you get to use your words, whether they're written or oral, but a way for you to be able to share your concepts in a powerful way. Then you have the strategic talent. The worst thing you can do to somebody with strategic is say, this is the way it must be done. You must follow this exactly. No, what you need to do for somebody with strategic is say, here's what we want it to look like when it's done. Go figure it out. People with strategic, not given some kind of a challenge, will get bored. So there has to be a little bit of a challenge to it for that strategic. And then you have the positivity. If you're walking into an environment, either that's hugely toxic or already amazing, may not be the right fit. The positivity person wants to go in the environment where they can naturally lift other people up, or go into an environment where there will be opportunities individually to lift people up with that natural optimism that comes from this positivity talent. And then your last talent is futuristic. So people with futuristic are always looking out into what could be way down the road. What you don't want to do with a futuristic person is say, all right, now your task is you're going to study how we've been doing this for the last 5 years and figure out what's wrong with it. What would be better would be for them to say, we want you to envision what our firm could look like 3 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
Put you in a room where you could just either think or even interact, because of that communication, with other people and brainstorm the strategic vision for the organization. My guess is at the end of a day, if you were doing those kinds of things, you'd be like, I am so full of energy.
Which is the exact reason why I joined this firm, is that's exactly the person that I'm working with, and the national. I actually was the speaker at their international partner meeting 4 years ago, and so we started talking about this back then.
Right.
And then with the current world situation, it all sort of lined up that it was the right move for me. But everything you said, I'm like, oh, good, whew, I made the right choice.
Well, and let me just add one more thing to it, because there's one more component that I wanted to reference, and that's that you'll notice that your talents fall into 3 of the 4 quadrants. The one quadrant it doesn't fall in is the orange energized quadrant. People with your mix of talents, we have a name for it. They are called passionatos, right? And the passionatos are purpose-driven people. And what we have found for passionatos is that if they're not doing what they love, they have a hard time getting energized. Where other people with a whole bunch of the orange energized talents, even if they don't love what they're doing, the internal juices are just flowing and they'll find a way. But when you don't have the orange energized talents, you need to be in a space where you're loving what you're doing. And then it doesn't feel like work at all. And I've watched you work, Tom, and I've watched you work, not just work a room, but stand on a stage or stand amidst a crowd. And I see the brilliance. And I can tell in those moments that, like, this guy loves what he's doing. And I think about people like you, and I know that at time, because we are very similar in that way, at a time like this, it can be energy draining to not get to use our talents effectively. And so what you and Eliz are doing right now, I think, is so important, because both of you are getting to use your talents in a different way than you were used to.
Yes.
And you're feeding yourselves by doing it.
Yep.
Well,
that's why we've enjoyed all of these interviews. It does feed our talents, I think.
Absolutely. But let's go a step further though.
Yeah.
Then. So let's say Tom's already on the team.
Right.
When you're hiring to add somebody to the team. So I'm imagining, if he doesn't have the orange quadrant, if you have something that needs those skills, you're going to want somebody that has some of those quadrants.
Like somebody like this.
Like someone like me. Isn't that interesting?
It's so weird that we work well together, isn't it?
I know,
what I love about this is that you've got one person with a little bit more of the orange and one person with a little more of the green. And what one of you doesn't have in terms of a quadrant represented, the other one has in overdrive, and not in overdrive in a bad way. And so you have some talents in common which allow for that really quick rapport, but then you have talents that are different that allow for a kind of a filling of what might not be there. It's interesting. About 19% of the population have talents in all 4 quadrants. That means that all the rest are either 3 quadrants or less. It's not good or bad, it's just different. But when we take somebody who is a passionato like Tom with none of the orange, and we pair them with somebody like Eliz, and Eliz's cordial, we call it, is called an optimizer, you work so well together because you are able to fill in the quadrant that the other doesn't have naturally. Again, it doesn't mean that Tom doesn't get energized. But for him, because of where his top 5 fall, he's going to be most energized when either he is around a situation where he's doing what he loves, or he's around people who have those orange talents that can help fill it in. And in your case, Eliz, you have a talent called belief. People with belief are naturally grounded. They're driven by their core values, and they know exactly how to get themselves energized by making sure that they stay in their kind of concept lane. If we take you way out of it and we say, all right, Eliz, we want you to do something that goes against your values, but you know what? You've got other gifts, so you can do it. My guess is it would kill your energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
that's very true.
That's right. So for somebody like you, my coaching is going to be make sure that the values of the organization you're working with coincide fairly closely with your personal values. Because if they don't, even if you take the job for a while, you're probably going to find yourself wanting to get out.
Yeah. I could look back in my past and say, oh yeah, there's an example of that. Absolutely. Yeah. Or when the values of the organization shift.
Correct.
That is a problem.
And interestingly, I have a theory that it's the people with the belief talent that are most likely to be the whistleblowers. The people who go, hang on, our company said we're about this. Somebody's doing this, which is not what our company says. And I'm going to speak up because if I don't, it's going to kill my energy.
Yeah. Oh, it's very hard.
Right.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly. And, from a stress perspective, which is, my area all of the time.
Right.
I think when that's out of alignment, that's where I'm not sleeping. I can't let go of it because that stuff really bothers me.
Right. Yep.
A rule follower.
I get it. Right. Whereas Tom might be a little more of a rule creator in the moment. I'm guessing. I don't know that that's true, but there might be moments where, oh, well, I can still get there this way. Now, I'm not saying that he would be unethical, but he might go, okay, I think there's a rule there, but if I don't look right in that spot, I won't see the rule, and then I can go this way. I'm not speaking for you. I'm just saying.
Just saying. Well,
saying.
Gary, so this is fascinating. And I think that out there's someone watching this video who's like, oh, we probably need to look at this in our company. So is this something that they can do? Can they call you and hire you to come in and test everybody and consult with them?
They're not likely to hire me because my job is to teach people how to teach our work. They are likely to hire one of the CoreClarity certified facilitators that's around the country. So what I do is I run our certification program, and then we get people either internal within companies or independent contractors who are going to offer this in their organizations. And so they can learn all about that, though, on our website, which is CoreClarity.net. The CoreClarity.com, I think, is skincare, so that one won't help you. CoreClarity.net.
Well, it might help them if they.
That's right.
It depends on what you need.
Yeah, but you certainly can hire me or Candace, but we're pretty expensive because our job is really the creation of the intellectual property and me teaching people how to deliver it. What they're going to want is we've got some amazing CoreClarity facilitators out there who are looking for work. And we just finished a huge project to create a virtual version of our workshops. We recrafted the workshops because you can't just go, all right, let's take what we were doing in public in face-to-face and make it virtual. So we've redesigned them totally with videos and all kinds of self-learning so that people can take a team through this in the virtual space if they want to.
Nice.
And I think right now, as we're navigating all of this uncertainty, investing in your people, making them feel valued is something very important that organizations can do. I can't remember who said it. Maybe Tom will, but somewhere in these interviews, someone said, how you treat your people right now is going to be the predictor of your future success. So investing in your team makes perfect sense right now.
And investing in yourself.
Oh, so absolutely.
Even just, I'm talking to a manager right now. Hopefully you're thinking, wow, I probably took that assessment at some point. I don't remember, but I'm going to go find my results and I'm going to contact CoreClarity or go to the CoreClarity website and we'll tell you how to go get your results. You shouldn't take it a second time. First time you take the Clifton Strengths Assessment is the most accurate. Even if you took it when it used to be called the Strengths Finder, same exact tool. They just renamed it to honor Don Clifton, who created it, which I think is really awesome.
Nice. It is really cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, Gary, Thank you so much for coming and participating here on the Webinar Talk Show. I mean,
Yeah.
you're exact proof of what Eliz and I believe is that a webinar doesn't have to be a talking head over PowerPoint to deliver really important content. And I think you shared some really important stuff. So thank you.
I appreciate that. And I appreciate both of you.
Well, and thanks for validating that Tom and I are a good team. We scientifically, we are a good team.
That's right. We already knew that, but now we have actual proof.
And everyone who's experienced you knows that you're a good team.
Thanks. So if you are planning something that used to be in person and now you're looking at, oh my goodness, I think we're going to need to do that virtually or some sort of hybrid event. Tom and I have been doing this for a long time, 6 years. We've been a good team for 6 years. We would love to help you figure out how to reinvent that in-person event. You can find us at webinartalkshow.com or on Facebook at Webinar Talk Show. We've got some wonderful guests for you next week. We'll see you then. Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.